Welcome everyone to Rising Out of the Chrysalis Stories That Inspire with Marissa Grace, where we share life stories of struggle and triumph, not only of my own life experiences, but also through the experiences of my own guests, as a way to help you have breakthroughs and find hope in your own life. Welcome everyone. Today I have the pleasure of introducing you to Lauren Rose. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Now, Lauren, you have a very interesting story, and it really started kind of in your childhood where you started having certain issues. So why don't you tell us about that? Go back to your childhood and let us know, what happened? What are the things that kind of evolved?
So there was a lot. My first, I guess if you want to call it trauma, was just being given up for adoption, right, literally minutes after I was born. So I lived with adoption trauma. And then I grew up in a household where my dad was verbally abusive and my mom just let it happen. So I learned to keep my emotions and my my thoughts and my opinions, my preferences just inside because we did not have a welcoming environment for any of those things. You agreed with my dad, and that was that. If you didn't, you were going to hear how stupid you were. About when I was 15, it was a couple of things happened. I developed an eating disorder and I started having really bad headaches every single day. I never told my parents about it because the thought never occurred to me. We were not very close. And I just never thought about mentioning it. I just kind of dealt with it. I finally went to a doctor when I was 21, and he diagnosed me with combination migraines and tension headaches. He didn't get all the diagnoses. Those are correct, but there are so many more pieces to the puzzle. I've also got other kinds of headaches, occipital neuralgia and temporal mandibular joint dysfunction headaches. But so I'd had headaches for about 20 years. And when I was 35, I went into a 4-week inpatient pain recovery program where I learned a lot about how our trapped emotions can be the cause of physical pain. And so that was really interesting. And within months of coming out of that, I found out I have autoimmune disorder. I have rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, degenerative disc disease is what I had at the time. That's just to start me out. And I did something when we took my daughter to the zoo when she was 3. And I'm not sure what I did, but I hurt my spine, my low back, my L5 S1 discs. And I was in so much pain, I thought I had fractured my spine. So I went to the ER. There wasn't a fracture. Turns out it was just due to my arthritis, my spondyloarthropathy, basically kind of like arthritis of the spine. And so for the next 10 months, I was wearing a back brace to work every day. I was working from home as much as I possibly could. It hurt really badly to walk, so I didn't walk very much. If I was going to get up and walk, I made sure that I was going to get all of my tasks done before I sat back down so I didn't have to get back up and walk again. So I was getting steroid injections. I went to physical therapy, and I finally got a set of steroid injections that caused me even more pain I was already in, which I didn't think that was possible, but it was. And I had to go on short-term disability. So 6 months away from my job, which I loved. I loved my job. I loved my company. During the 6 months on short-term disability, instead of my pain getting better, I was still doing physical therapy and getting injections. My pain started spreading. So it wasn't just in my low back anymore. It was in my hips and my shoulders and my hands and my knees and my feet. And just for fun, I developed fibromyalgia, which I had never had before. But I don't know I guess the stress of me being on short-term disability from my job and trying to manage all this just released the fibromyalgia. I don't exactly know how it happened, but so 6 months later, I was worse than I'd started out as, and I couldn't go back to work. So my short-term disability expired and they eliminated my position at work, which was devastating to me. Like I said, I loved my job. I loved my company. I was planning on going back to work and getting this other position, which is going to be even more awesome in my career. And I couldn't go back to work. I I spent about the next 2 years in a really deep depression. I had not only lost my job and my career, I had lost my functionality, I lost my health, I lost my identity. I felt like I'd lost my purpose in life. I couldn't work, and I certainly couldn't take care of my 5-year-old daughter and my husband very well. So I spent that time mostly in bed, just really wondering what my purpose in life was.
Wow,
And
that's incredible, all these things. I I want to take you back to your childhood again. You said you
mhm.
developed these migraines. Um, did you like tell anybody? Did you get any help when you started developing these symptoms, or did you just like suppress them and think, okay, eventually they'll go away?
I definitely suppressed them. I don't know if I eventually thought they would go away, but it was weird because the thought of telling my parents, I never even had the thought of telling them. I had so much secret inside of me already from suppressing so much that I didn't even think about telling them. It sounds really weird, but
No, not at all. Was it because of the fear that, you're already experiencing so much trauma of having this, verbally abusive dad, right? So we develop usually, a fear around that. If we say something, oh, am I going to get yelled at? There's going to be a consequence. Did you, have that belief that if I say something, maybe I'm going to get punished for it instead of getting help?
I I think it was partially because I was raised to be a perfectionist because of my dad, and I was always expected to be perfect. So me so me having severe daily headaches would mean that I wasn't perfect. So I think that's a big reason why I suppressed it, because I didn't want my dad to think less of me, and I didn't know how they would react if they learned that I was going through so much physical pain.
No, was that something, a belief that you created that you had to be perfect, or was that something they actually drilled into you that you have to be perfect all the time? You have to behave, you have to be good at
Mhm.
school, you have to be good at this.
Yeah, it was never stated, Lauren, you have to be perfect. However, anytime I wasn't perfect, I got to hear it from my dad. And if I wasn't a good enough daughter, I got to hear it from my mom. My brother went the opposite route of me. I went the perfectionist route. He went the rebel route. So he decided he didn't care. He was just going to do whatever he wanted to do because he could never measure up to as quote unquote perfect as I was or was trying to be. So we definitely heard a lot if we messed up, we were dumb or stupid or a jackass. My brother got called that a lot for, just doing normal things that children do or expressing his opinions. My dad would call him that. So I didn't like getting in trouble, and I didn't want to be called names, and I didn't like being insulted. So I just really tried to do everything I could to make my dad happy.
When you're 35 now, and now you discover you have this autoimmune disease, what went through your mind? Like, as you're learning now, you have all these other issues that are coming up. Did you ever think, oh my God, is this coming from somewhere else? Why am I being punished for this? What went
I
through your mind as you processed all these things?
The biggest thing was anger at my body. I felt like my body was betraying me. I was only 35, and when I was 37, I had to apply for disability from the government, which I got, and I just felt like I'm only in my 30s. My body is completely betraying me. I'm supposed to be functional. I'm supposed to be able to do normal things without excruciating pain, and I can't. So it was just a lot of anger.
Did you ever, I know you said when you started this treatment where that you learned that a lot of the symptoms, come from the emotion part of it. What did you learn from that as you went into those treatments?
So I learned that depending on the expert, somewhere between 50 and 80% of physical pain is from trapped emotional pain. And I didn't know that. I'd never really thought about it. I had some other trauma in my life when I was, 18 through 20. I was sexually abused by my cousin. I was raped and I was physically abused by a boyfriend. And so I realized, and I never got help for any of that. I just was kind of person where, okay, it's over. I'm just going to move on with my life. It's not going to affect me anymore. But that's just even more stuff that I suppressed in my body. And so learning that so much physical pain is caused by trauma and emotions, I started to realize I've got to process these things that I've experienced. And so I started getting therapy. I've started doing trauma therapy and working through all of it. But it was just really shocking to me that so much physical pain can be from emotions.
Absolutely, all pain, all, the majority of diseases within our bodies all have an initial um, birth from emotion, I should say, suppressed emotions. And it just over time usually accumulates and then it transforms into a disease or pain. But because you experience so much trauma, there's just like so much one after the other that you just kept suppressing and suppressing that your body just was like, I can't take it, right? Um, so, and that's one way of the body expressing itself to you. Hey, I'm hurting. Hello. So I'm gonna, give you pain. So, you deal with this. What other therapies did you go into and use to try besides, the talk therapy, to deal with the trauma? Were there anything else that um you tried to help you process everything, or was that just
So
basically it?
so from reading the book, The Body Keeps the Score, I learned a lot about mind body connection and how when we have trauma, that connection is severed. And so our amygdala is in constant fight or flight mode,
Hmm.
which can explain my just daily, pretty debilitating anxiety that I have. So I've started doing some journaling, and I'm doing a specific kind of trauma therapy called EMDR, eye movement reprocessing and desensitization therapy. And that's a way to more quickly than talk therapy release a lot of the trapped, emotions and thoughts and trauma that's in your body. You don't necessarily have to talk about everything that happened, which is good. And you can get, I don't know, a month's worth. I think my therapist said like a month's worth of therapy in one EMDR session, or maybe it's a couple months worth, but there's a lot that goes into that specific modality. So I've also started meditation, and I want to try yoga. Just my body hasn't been cooperating yet. Every day I think about it, but I just feel like it's going to create more pain. So I haven't started that yet, but working a lot on the mind body connection piece and just connecting those two back, because I know that there's that connection has been severed, and I just didn't realize that that happened and how important that was.
Absolutely. And you're going to notice those changes within your body as you work because, like you said, it is about, healing both, right? Mind, body, and soul. And our cells in our bodies, they carry the memory of the trauma. It's not just in our mind, it's just not our emotions, it's every part of your body, every cell that's holding on to that trauma that needs to learn to let go and to heal. So it's about, all of the bringing all of those things together. Now, take me back to when you lost your job because you were dealing with all this pain and you had a little girl, a child to take care of. Take me back to that time. How was that for your family? How did that impact, your daughter, your husband, the household?
So I spent most of my days in bed. And I mean, we weren't very social with our family. I missed a lot of family events. I was lucky if I went to church once a month. And my daughter saw me in that position in bed that I really didn't want her to see me in forever. But it was just a really hard time because feeling like you've lost your purpose in life is really hard. And that time I realize now was a grieving period, which I think is was really important to my recovery and to my healing. I wish it hadn't have been so long, but I can't help how long my body needs to grieve these things. So it was just a really dark place. I spent most of my time in bed. And so I didn't, spend a lot of time playing with my daughter because I never felt like playing or didn't want to play. And I mean, I did some, but definitely not as much as I wish I had. But again, it was a grieving process. So I try to give myself some grace, knowing that that needed to happen, or else I would have just suppressed all of that grief and all of those emotions, and I would have made myself worse.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. Sometimes we just can't help, the consequences, with the impacts around us because we need to take care of ourselves. We need to just listen to the body and go through that process. And yet, yes, it's going to impact the people around us, but um, if we don't take that time, the impact might be worse on
Hmm.
everybody, right? You could have gotten so severely depressed that something really bad could happen that could have been more hurtful for everyone. So, it's great that you understand that you took that time because you really need it and your body needed it. Now, I went to a similar experience with my husband where he hurt his back and was in severe pain for quite a few years and fell into a deep depression, just like you did, because of the pain. And this is very common when we go through severe pain or traumatic pain, whatever, that we end up getting depressed because the pain is constant. It's not like it comes, it's just constantly there. And it's so hard. You can't sit, you can't lay down. There's nothing that makes you feel better. So you can't help it then becoming so depressed. And he became very disconnected from my daughter as well, where, he hardly took time to play with her or hold her or anything. And yes, that has had impacts in their relationship, but now he feels so much better that, they've been working on their relationship. Even though you can't take back that time, you can go back, and still, teach your kid about all these things, right? So they can learn and be more sympathetic about others and their friends, because they may have friends that could be going through difficult periods or depression. They will know those signs. They will know, hey, there's something not right because I've experienced this with my mom. So I know what that's like. Hey, you should go get help. So it's a good out of it, we can transform the experience into something really, really positive or as a learning experience for them as well. And how is she doing now? Now she's much older.
Yeah, she's 10 now. She gets a lot of the anxiety that I have. I don't know if that's genetic or what. It probably is, but I mean, she's doing pretty well. We have a really close relationship. The time that I did spend with her was a lot of it was instead of playing, it was snuggling with her on the couch while she watched TV or watched a movie. So I spent a lot of time lying down in bed, but I also spent a good amount of time just snuggling with her on the couch. So I think that helped a lot. And she's become a very compassionate, nurturing child. She loves to, help take care of me when I'm, having a really bad pain day. Or she helped me one time when I was having a really bad bout of anxiety. I was just starting to have an anxiety attack, and she helped kind of talk me through it and help us get through the task. And so she's very loving and compassionate.
That's amazing. I always find that the universe always brings us, especially children that come in and they're like either little angels or teachers in some sort of way
Mm.
to help us along our journey, whether they bring new concepts, about looking at reality differently, or teach us how to love and be more compassionate, right? Where we don't get that, from anybody else. So I feel like the universe always compensates, through the children in some way, and giving us what we need during our journey. So, Lauren, now you do this wonderful thing, which is you are helping others that are kind of um, also going through these challenges, special the autoimmune diseases. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I came out of my dark depression through daily gratitude and through realizing that, God could take my broken life and make something new and beautiful out of it, which I'd never considered. I had basically thought my life was over because I couldn't really do anything. But I started connecting with people on forums online that had chronic pain, chronic illness, depression, anxiety, previous trauma. And I found a lot of joy in encouraging them, giving them advice, connecting with them, helping them feel like they weren't alone. And then I read statistics that 1 out of 5 people lives with chronic pain, and 1 out of 12 people lives with chronic pain that's significant enough to affect their daily lives in a big way. And that's a huge number. I mean, that's 50 million people just in the United States that have chronic pain. So I realized I'm definitely not alone. And it's felt like a very lonely journey because people with chronic pain don't sit around and talk about their chronic pain a lot. We keep a lot of it to ourselves. And so I started a blog, and then a few months later, I started a podcast, and they're both called It Hurts to Mom. And I have episodes on parenting, on health, on, managing pain, on healing from pain. And I really just am finding a lot of joy in having different episodes that have different elements of parenting with chronic pain or chronic illness, and trying to help others, manage how difficult it is to live and parent with chronic pain and illness.
That's amazing. Now I have a question for you. When you
Mhm.
when you work with these individuals, do you find there's a correlation, as you talk about their emotions as well, and how that can be a part of the impact of why they're going through what they're going through? Do you find there's a correlation of the trauma, similar traumas between each individual that are going through similar experiences as you?
A lot of the time there's trauma or some kind of stress that their bodies are hanging on to. I think it's theorized that the suppressed emotions and trauma are in our soft tissue cells, or somewhere in our body. They're just theorizing right now, but it's definitely been a theme talking. They don't always talk about their trauma on my podcast, but we talk, beforehand and then sometimes after I hit stop on the recording. And there's definitely a lot of trauma, suppressed emotions, and suppressed stress that seem to have caused a lot of these issues.
And do you also offer or just kind of give advice and different healing modalities that might help them just get through whatever they're going through? Or is just more like a supporting system? Hey, I'm here for you. I'm going through the same pain. So I understand what you're going through.
So all of my episodes end with some kind of advice or tips or something. It's not just stories to make people feel like they're not alone. Everything ends with some kind of advice. Whether I've had several doctors on, I had one lady who completely healed her chronic pain that was from a narcissistic abusive relationship. And so all these people have advice that they give either to heal the pain, to manage the pain, to just add another layer of making things a little bit better, that kind of thing.
That's amazing. Such a great thing that you're doing and helping so many. Because, like you said, it is a pretty common thing that so many suffer with, but yet they don't talk about it, right? They don't, they kind of keep it in the closet. And, the most common is migraines, right?
Mm,
So many people suffer from migraines. Now, through my therapy practice, what I have found is those that suffer from the migraines is the body's way of telling you that, hey, I need some rest.
mm,
And, what often happens with individuals is they've learned since childhood to keep pushing on, that they can't quit. They have to keep going and suppress whatever they feel, whether they feel tired or not, they just have to keep going. And so the body has learned to, like, hey, I need rest. So I'm going to create a migraine for you, because
mhm.
that way you can't get out of bed and you can't go to work, and then you're going to give me the rest that I need. Um, because, you keep pushing and you're not listening to the body. So one of the things that's I find very important is learning how to connect with your body and listen to the body.
I
It's so important. Have you find that to be truth for you as well?
Absolutely. When I was in that 4-week inpatient pain recovery program, we did this guided meditation, and we were supposed to imagine our pain, give it a shape, give it a color, give it characteristics. And so my pain was this dark figure with spikes coming out of it and an angry face. And we were supposed to communicate with it. So I asked my pain, why are you trying to hurt me? Because that's exactly what I felt like my pain was doing. It was just hurting me, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally and relationally and spiritually. And my pain said back to me with a hurt sounding voice, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to tell you something. And that was huge for me. That was one of those mind body connection moments where, it sounds silly. I was talking to this, imagined version of my pain, but it told me exactly what I needed to hear. And what I needed to hear was that I needed to start releasing all of this pent up trauma and all these pent up emotions and work through all of that emotional stuff so that I could get better. And one thing I will say about pushing through, because I did that for years and years. And finally, one day, I realized nobody is going to take care of myself except for me. I am in charge of taking care of myself, because I tried leaving work early one day because I was in excruciating pain from a migraine, and he let me leave. He let me work another like 4 hours and let me leave 2 hours early. And I was pushing through and pushing through. And the next time I was in excruciating pain, I actually called in, which I'd never done before. But I realized my job, my employer's not going to take care of me. I have to take care of myself.
That is so true. That's right. No employer, no husband, no partner, no family member. They don't know what you know, they can sympathize with what you're going through, but nobody really will understand what you're going through. You have to be your own safeguard, your own caregiver. You have to be
Mm-hmm.
able to tune in to your own body and make that decision for your own good, because nobody from the outside is going to be able to take care of you the way that you do. And you have to kind of learn to listen to your body for your own good. Because by pushing through, by listening to the boss that says, oh, I need you here for another 2 hours, all that's doing is making things even worse for you, not helping you. And a lot of times it's just fear. That fear, and it's probably the fear, not that the boss is going to yell at you or just, it's really the fear of probably that little girl, Lauren, that was afraid that dad was going to yell at her. So she needs to be perfect. So I got to be perfect at work too. Otherwise, there's going to be a consequence, right? There's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
somebody's going to say something to me that's not going to feel good. So I better stay and push through, because I don't want to deal with that. But that's all a lie that we tell ourselves. We make up those lies and then we believe them to be true. And I myself been in those situations, coming from a dad that was also very verbally abusive. Um, and I created that fear as a little girl. that, if I didn't do and if I wasn't perfect, if I didn't do the things to please others, right? Became a people pleaser because I didn't want anybody to be upset. Um, that didn't help anybody. Yeah, the people were satisfied, but that was just hurting me more than anything. And in the end, they were just using me to get, what they needed. And then they were done. So, and same thing even at work, the boss will be satisfied as long as you're giving them exactly what they want, right? You're an obedient person, you show up and you do exactly what, and then as soon as you're no longer providing that, you're no longer, you know, needed. You're no longer, anything of value to them. And that goes for relationships. It goes for anything, friendships that you have. It's the same thing because instead of us really learning how to love ourselves and taking care of ourselves, we've adapted to pleasing because we have that fear inside that if we don't please, if we don't do things right, there might be a consequence. And we don't want to confront that consequence because it's scary. But it's really, based on those events that we experience as children. And I think probably the hardest thing is letting go of that fear and learning that it's no longer needed. We don't longer need that in our lives to protect us because we developed that as a way to protect us, right? Because the child, little Lauren, I'm going to be obedient. So this way I'm protected and dad doesn't yell at me and there's no consequences and there might be a beating. I don't get hit and everything's perfect. So I'm going to create this to protect myself. But as we grow older, we don't need that. But it's about learning to let that go and really rewiring those beliefs that we created that, they don't make sense. They don't work for us anymore. And we kind of have to let them go. Now, have you, like, what progress have you made in like going back to that little girl? And have you done any inner child like healing, or is that still ongoing, the healing process that you're going through?
It's ongoing. We do a lot of inner child work in the EMDR sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go through. We recently spent several sessions going through an event that happened with my dad when I was about 5, and he got angry at me in public, and I have held on to his reaction to me for almost 40 years, and I've replayed that in my head over and over and over. And I finally started realizing I didn't do anything wrong. He reacted badly. My mother reacted badly by not standing up and standing up for me and telling him to stop berating me in public. And I've just always thought that I couldn't be good enough for him because I always felt like there was always something else I had to do to to please him. Definitely was a people pleaser in my life too. But yeah, it's ongoing work, and I don't think that one day I'm going to magically be healed, but I think I will come to a point where these childhood things and these things that happened in my late teens, early 20s won't affect me so badly, and hopefully, the physical pain will start getting better too. That's my ultimate goal is to feel less physical pain and feel less emotional pain.
Absolutely. And I truly believe you will get there. Like you said, it is a process, right? If we think about all the years that we've incurred all this trauma, the body's going to also take some time to heal all those layers, all those years. It's not an overnight thing, right? You can't just, click your fingers and everything is gone. So you have to be gentle and patient with the body, knowing that it's going to take a little bit of time, but each day, each week, each month, it just gets better and better. And then one day when you will be free from all of this, and you look back and realize, wow, what a journey that's been. And you learn
Yeah.
so much through this process as well. And I'm so happy that, through this process, this healing journey that you're going through, you're also helping others through the process as well. And, I find that when we help somebody heal, we heal a part of us as
Mm.
well. So, Lauren, thank you so much for sharing your story here in the show. Now, if somebody wants to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Sure. So my Instagram is at it hurts to mom. My Facebook is facebook.com/it hurts to mom. You can email me at it hurts to mom at gmail.com if you want to chat or if you want to be on my podcast. My podcast is on all the major podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, all of them. Um, and my website is ithurtstomom.com. So I keep it pretty easy. I'm just it hurts to mom everywhere.
Yes, it does. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Please remember to subscribe, share, and like. And until next week, take care.